when it's state versus state, those are the best games. Those are most special games because of, the fan base is locked in a different way and everything that way. And so, look, I know what this means to the state of Wyoming. Our players know what this means to the state of Wyoming. The number one job that we have this week is to put a team on the field that represents the state of Wyoming, unlike what we did a year ago.
Hello and welcome back to Wyoming Watch from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. I'm Noah Zahn, your state government reporter here. This week on Wyoming Watch, we're talking about the border war. That's the annual clash between University of Wyoming and Colorado State University football, which is separated just by around 65 miles. Although the rivalry isn't going anywhere anytime soon, this will be the last time the two face off in the same conference, as the CSU Rams will be leaving the Mountain West Conference and joining the Pac-12 Conference in 2026. At the start of the show, you heard UW coach Jay Sauble talking about what that rivalry means. The two schools were both founding members of the Mountain West Conference in 1999, but have been playing against each other as far back as 1900. This week on Wyoming Watch, I spoke with Alex Taylor, who covers UW athletics for WyoSports, about what this end of an era means to both schools and how things may go down on Saturday. Here's that conversation now. So now I'm here with Alex Taylor, the Wyoming beat writer for WyoSports. Thank you for joining us this week.
No problem, no. Good to be on.
Yeah. And so we're here to talk about the last, official border war between UW and CSU. I'm a college sports fan, but don't follow UW too closely. I'm a Mizzou fan. So I guess just for background, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about the program this year and how things have been going?
Not great. It's been a little up and down. We got a coaching change this week at offensive coordinator, so that kind of shows you where this program's at, just offensively. I think they're tied for 114th in the country in total offense, so they just changed their offensive coordinator to wide receiver coach Jovan Bouknight. So they're sitting at 3-4, coming off a pretty rough loss on the road at Air Force, which very winnable game, 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. So this is kind of an important matchup this week for both teams because Colorado State just fired their head coach. So it's kind of, you don't really know what to expect, but I think both teams have this matchup circled. Obviously they circle it every year anyways, but it's a little more there's a little more at stake this weekend, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And before the call, we were kind of talking about how, this isn't the last time these two teams are going to be playing, but this is the last official conference game. So can you kind of dive into that a little bit about what this conference change means, how it got to this point, and what this game kind of symbolizes as an end of that era?
Yeah, so this is Colorado State's last year playing in the Mountain West. Obviously Wyoming and Colorado State have been in the same conference forever, so this is really the last border war that will count as a conference game. They're still playing. They have a scheduling agreement, I think, up till 2035, or 2036. But beyond this year, they're all non-conference games. So obviously they're still going to play. It's still going to be the border war, but I'm not going to say it doesn't mean as much. But you look at next year, the border war is going to be the first game of the year. So it's obviously when you look at, and it's not the case this year because both teams are in down years, but this is kind of, the stakes might be lowered, I guess, in the future, just in terms of this not counting towards a Mountain West championship. And so, yeah, you look at just in terms of the non-con, like you said, they're still going to play, but this is it for a Mountain West Conference game. CSU's going off to the Pac-12 starting next academic year, and that's football, basketball, all sports. So, I think the stakes it'd be pretty, the winner this year is going to feel a little bit better than maybe historically in a matchup of a 3-4 versus a 2-5 team.
Mm-hmm. And are they still going to have the bronze boot? Is that the trophy they transfer?
Yeah, they're still it's pretty cool. The history behind it, they have the ROTC programs of each school. So like they're leaving, I think they leave Fort Collins this year at like 5 a.m. They leave Canvas Stadium 5 a.m. and they run it to the border, the Wyoming-Colorado border, and then Wyoming's ROTC unit takes the trophy and then runs it all the way to War Memorial Stadium. So they're doing it this year for sure. I don't see that ending in any way, but that's one of the cooler trophies I'd say. And you mentioned being a Mizzou fan. Obviously, I'm from Michigan originally, so like we didn't really have like at the group of five level of like mid-majors football. I think this rivalry kind of just sticks out because of the history between it, and you like that. And it's kind of interesting. I was talking to Wyoming's defensive line coach or defensive end coach Brian Hendricks on Monday, and it's they have a space in each school's trophy case for this trophy. So obviously, when you don't win the game, there's an entire year that goes by where that shelf is just empty. So Wyoming's trophy case for the Bronze Boot has been empty for the last 9, 10, 11 months, whatever it is. So they kind of a motivational thing is that Hendricks said that he'll take the players up to the trophy case and be like, hey, this is what happens when you lose this game is you have to look at an empty trophy case for the next year.
And real quick, you said they run it from the border, like physically on foot?
Yeah.
Wow,
yep.
I didn't know that.
All down 287, yeah.
That's crazy. I'm glad I don't have to do that. But, you mentioned, I am a Mizzou fan, and I think it's an interesting comparison in a way whenever Mizzou joined the SEC in like 2012 or 2013. Historically, we had that border war rivalry with Kansas. And, since then, this year was the first year that, in football at least, that Mizzou had played Kansas in 10 years, I think, or 11 years, something like that. And there's kind of been this artificial rivalry that the SEC has tried to form with Arkansas primarily. And so there's just kind of a weird feeling there, and it felt good to have that rivalry game back this year. Do you foresee any kind of dynamic shifts like that? Like, is Wyoming going to have a new forced rival, if you will, or I don't know what you're going to call it, but do you see anything shifting in a similar way?
It's kind of hard, like, because it's weird in this circumstance just because they're going to continue to play. But like I said, that's only up until 2030. You're never going to know what's going to happen in 10 years with college football, obviously. But there's traveling trophies. They have a trophy with Utah State. They have a trophy with Hawaii. Like, there's some other trophies out there that obviously don't mean nearly as much to either program. It's just kind of a forced rivalry, like you said. And then this one, historically, Wyoming's been rivals with BYU, Utah, TCU in the past, and obviously we've seen them change conferences, and it's that rivalry kind of just goes away. So it's kind of you end up when you're playing a team like BYU every year, and then they move to the Big 12, then you're playing them once or twice every 10 years. Naturally, that rivalry is going to go away. So I'd be shocked if that is something that happens with this rivalry. I think both fan bases there'd be an uproar on both sides, and this is kind of a unique situation. Obviously, a mile or an hour down the road from each other, and even with the conference change, there would be a lot of upset football fans on both sides of the rivalry if this game was in jeopardy. And right now, there's not a game scheduled in 2027, and they had just recently signed an agreement to play next year, but they're still working on that 2027 game. So there was some uncertainty of whether this game would be played next year and then the year after, and they're still working on 27. But even that, the possibility of not playing for 2 years, that had a lot of people upset, which just kind of goes to show just the passion on both sides of the state line of, we got to keep this thing going no matter what. And I credit to both athletic directors for coming to an agreement and getting it done. There had to be a couple buyouts for some games to make this thing happen, but hopefully we're not talking about that again in 10 years, because that'd have a lot of people upset.
And there's been a lot of I'm sure you have a better pulse on college football than I do, but a lot of movements in conference changes in the past few years and in the coming years as well. This one specifically, how does this impact the program for the University of Wyoming long term, or does it not really mean much? Or
I think, the Mountain West currently, I think, gets worse when you look at the teams leaving, especially in basketball. I mean, obviously the whole money driver now is football and TV contracts, but I think the competition level, I mean, there's a reason that the 5 schools that are leaving for the Pac-12 wanted out in the first place, and it's kind of the way that we got here it was not the cleanest break, obviously, by any means, but I think when you look at the Mountain West as it's currently constructed in 2026 would be a downgrade from what it is today. But just future, it's hard to predict. I mean, everything now is based off TV ratings and TV markets, and there's some programs out there that are leaving for the Pac-12 that think they're better than a school like Wyoming, and it's all numbers based. But at the end of the day, like, you kind of look at the history of programs, and you would think that fan bases in a historical context would mean something in the grand scheme of things. But those are a lot of times the people making those decisions are university presidents, and it's way above the athletic department level. So I don't know, in terms of where the Mountain West is in, what position they're in 3-4 years, who knows? But right now they're going to have 9 teams in football next year, and the teams that they're bringing in are definitely, say, a downgrade from the teams leaving, but who knows where a school's going to be at in today's landscape in 4 or 5 years down the road.
Yeah, have you heard any sort of immediate, financial concerns about this shift, or is it kind of, like you said, kind of waiting to see how things play out over the next few years?
Yeah, they're still in court right now. Mountain West, Pac-12. There's some lawsuits. Obviously, though, there's some buyouts that are being negotiated or whatever, are being settled in court. But in terms of TV deal, Wyoming's going to lose probably a couple $1 million a year, if I had to guess, just on their TV revenue based on the new conference. It's obviously based on the brands that you have in the conference. So there's definitely, I don't know, lose money, but they're going to be making less money than the Pac-12 will probably be making, if I had to guess. But I don't have any, with the concrete numbers or not, that's still something being figured out in the judicial system right now.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So that's something that'll just, we'll get answers over time with that, I guess.
Yeah.
And so for the game on Saturday, is there anything, about the game specifically, what's your kind of prediction or things to look out for in this game?
It's going to be a messy game. Coaching changes on both sides. Rivalry games are always weird. I do think an interesting note for this year is Wyoming's got some Cole jerseys that they're unveiling this weekend, all black jerseys. Some people have had mixed reviews on that. I think it's cool. Wyoming Mining Association, I think, is the official sponsor, which obviously kind of a big part of Wyoming's economy. So I think it's kind of cool to kind of reflect that on a national scale. But just in terms of the actual game, I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. It's probably won't be that fun to watch, but it is a rivalry, I guess. So I think it'd be a real backbreaker for Wyoming if they're watching Colorado State run off with the bronze boot for the second year in a row, because it was not a competitive game last year. And I was talking to Brian Hendricks. He was like, "Hey, how was the bus ride home back to Laramie from Fort Collins?" He was like, I don't want to talk about it. So we'll see. A lot of stakes. I mean, not a lot to play for. I mean, 3-4 at this point. I think your Mountain West title hopes are kind of dashed for both teams. So this is really the biggest game probably left on both teams' schedules, and hopefully it's a good crowd on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was actually talking with, I think just yesterday, with a friend I have who used to play on the team there in Laramie, and he was telling me that, they used to never do these kind of alternate uniforms. Is this a more recent thing that they've been doing?
Yeah, well, Craig Bull was the coach for 10 years. I think they had probably 3 jerseys that they used the entire 10 years. He was super traditional, and this is the first time they've gone all black. So I think people are kind of skeptical of change, I'd say, especially in Wyoming once in a while. But I think I personally, as a college football fan, I think it looks cool. Kind of do something different once in a while, and like I said, kind of represent your state in a way that reflects the people that live in the state. And what better way than dark black cold jerseys in Wyoming? So I personally, I mean, it's definitely a new thing with Jay Salvo in his second year as the head coach, but I think you'll probably see more of that as the sporting, like NIL, like sporting partnerships kind of go along. Same thing with basketball.
Yeah, I've seen the jerseys too. I think they look pretty slick.
Yeah.
But the actual game itself, I've been to a few games in Laramie there, but I haven't been to a CSU rivalry game. Can you tell me about what the atmosphere is like there? Is it just like a typical rivalry game, or are there, traditions that always happen for that?
It's pretty hostile, and obviously these two fan bases don't love each other by any means. And I would say it's already hard enough to get a hotel. It's pretty much impossible to get a hotel in Laramie on a game day, but this would be actually like impossible to get a hotel in Laramie, which kind of sucks. But I think traditionally, like I said, them running the bronze boot into the stadium, that's obviously a tradition. And then winning team, as soon as the time expires on the clock, obviously the winning team goes up and carries the trophy to their sideline. So Wyoming had to watch Colorado State do that at home last year, and that's just not an atmosphere that an opposing player would want to be in after losing, I would say. So it's an emotional game from the fans, the players, the coaches, all the way around. So it's usually a good time.
Well, that's all I've got. Thank you for joining us, Alex. I appreciate you coming on Wyoming Watch for the first time and hope to have you back again.
Yeah, no problem. No, appreciate it.
Both teams have been struggling this year, with CSU letting go of its head coach and UW releasing their offensive coordinator, both within this past week. The final conference matchup will be in Laramie tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Now, here's our arts and entertainment reporter, Taylor Staples, to bring you a roundup of some upcoming events in Cheyenne and throughout Laramie County this week.
On Friday, October 24th, there's a dementia caregiver support group from noon to 1 p.m. at the library, as well as a behind the curtain lunch and learn for Cheyenne Little Theater Players production of Snow White, also from noon to 1 at the library. Then there's a fall home show from noon to 6 p.m. at the Event Center at Archer. The home show is also tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. At night, there's the Nightmare on 17th Street Haunted House from 7 to 11 p.m., both tonight and tomorrow at the Knights of Pythias Lodge. On Saturday, October 25th, the 5th Annual Meadowlark Market takes place from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Blue Federal Credit Union headquarters. Then, the Botanic Gardens is hosting a Pumpkin Patch Tangles crafting event from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Then, from 1 to 3 p.m., the Cheyenne Frontier Days Old West Museum has their Wild West Trunk or Treat from 1 to 3 p.m. And there's a Sip and Paint Night from 5 to 7 p.m. at Cats and Coffee Connections. Also, CLTP is teaming up with the library for an after-hours haunted house event from 5 to 9 p.m. And the annual Chamber of Commerce Boo Ball is at 6 p.m. at the Red Lion Inn. On Sunday, October 26th, LCCC has a trunk or treat from noon to 2:30 p.m., as well as a Things That Go Bump in the Night concert at 3 p.m. Then, Cats and Coffee Connections has a pumpkin painting event from 1 to 3 p.m., as well as a book club meeting for the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix from 4 to 5 p.m. There's also another trunk or treat this day from 3 to 5:30 p.m. at the Ascension Lutheran Church, a Halloween music show and fundraiser at the VFW Post 1881 at 6 p.m., and another Thanks for the Memories concert featuring Blue October at 7:30 p.m. at the Cheyenne Civic Center. On Monday, October 27th, there's a matinee movie for mindful aging featuring the movie Gandhi from 1982, playing from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. at the library. On Tuesday, October 28th, the last Senior Planet session at the library will revolve around navigating AI in the modern age and will be from 10 to 11:15 a.m. Then, the Shine Creativity Center has a paranormal paper scene craft night from 5:30 to 8 p.m. And the library is hosting Tuesday Night Book Club featuring Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt from 6 to 7:30 p.m. On Wednesday, October 29th, there's a Library for All Halloween party from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m., the annual Cheyenne Police Department Trunk or Treat from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Cheyenne Public Safety Center, a Brown Bag Book Club for The Graveyard Book from 4:15 to 5:15 p.m. at the library, and a Pride Cheyenne watch party at Freedom's Edge Brewing featuring Night of the Living Dead. Finally, on Thursday, October 30th, there's a viewing of the Book of Life for families from 2 to 4 p.m. at the library, as well as another Thankful Thursdays featuring Volunteers of America starting at 4 p.m. at the Lincoln Way Event Hall. Then there's a La Cavalera stick puppet workshop from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Cheyenne Botanic Gardens and a True Crime Book Club meeting from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the library. This is also the last Thursday for the Nightmare on 17th Street Haunted House from 7 to 11 p.m. at the Knights of Pythias Lodge. Tonight is also blackout night, so you'll have to navigate through the house with glow sticks. For the full list of upcoming events, head to wyomingnews.com/calendar. Prices and times are subject to change.
And finally, before we close out today, here's a quick recap of some of our top stories and headlines from this past week. On Tuesday, a suspected improvised explosive device was found at the Wyoming State Capitol and the building was immediately evacuated. Wednesday afternoon, the Wyoming Division of Criminal Investigation announced that the suspicious package is likely a deconstructed live firework munition with a fuse. DCI has begun reviewing video evidence and has identified 2 subjects of interest. Local firefighters responded to reports of smoke and fire that caused significant damage to a home at East 5th Street and Russell Avenue on Wednesday afternoon. At around 3 p.m. Wednesday, Cheyenne fire rescue crews were dispatched to a multi-unit residence structure fire. A local woman has been sentenced to 7 to 10 years in prison for felony voluntary manslaughter after stabbing her husband in the stomach. On January 18th, Shantavia Blanche and her husband, Brian Blanche, had an altercation which resulted in Shantavia stabbing Brian in the stomach. 4 days later, Brian died as a result of his injuries. And finally, President Donald Trump's intent to import more beef from Argentina to reduce domestic prices has the American cattle industry, including those in Wyoming, uncertain about the future. Industry representatives say it does not address root issues that have caused higher prices, while economists say they are still unsure if it even will accomplish the president's financial goal. That's all for this week on Wyoming Watch. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check back next Friday, where we'll be chatting with city council members about the city's plans for the Reed Avenue Rail Corridor, after recent announcements show revitalization efforts may be more expensive than initially anticipated.